Thanks again for supporting the Falling for Learning podcast. Ooh, okay, I am live, but there's a little camera difficulty. Let me fix that. That's weird. I don't know why it's doing that, but let's fix it. Hello. Ooh. I was up close, a little bit too close. Anyway, hopefully everyone is doing good and we are on the Falling for Learning podcast. I hope everyone is doing good today. Um, so today I've been up for quite a while because I had a presentation that I did for other national board certified teachers like myself. And this episode is really going to lean in on that not so popular testing season, which is happening right now, because we're in the second part of the school year. And if you want to know how to make sure that your kids are not feeling stressed out and they're actually achieving and meeting their goals, then stay tuned. Coming up. Hi, thank you so much for joining the Falling for Learning podcast. We have this podcast to help parents and caregivers with having the resources, strategies, and tools needed to make sure that their children are on track for learning and to stay on track for success. Okay, so this very unpopular thing, right? Testing. But actually, testing is a part of real life. If you're a lawyer, a teacher, um, a doctor, whatever, exams and testing are just part of life. Now, the key to getting kids out of feeling really stressed out about it and feeling like they're not going to be successful with it is actually getting them to love to do things like writing. So, writing is one of those skills. It is a gatekeeping skill if you can't write well. And of course, people are like, oh, we could use ChatGPT and all that kind of stuff. The reality is that they do have things in place to keep you from using things like AI or artificial intelligence. So, you really do need the skills for this, right? Of course, we as adults may use artificial intelligence, but we have benefited from knowing what good writing is and how to do good writing. And so I will be including another episode about how to use artificial intelligence in a responsible way and how to learn from it and grow from it and not just use it as something to do your work for you. So stay tuned for that. But what I do want to really talk about today is getting kids to love writing. Of course, I have the Rewrite Method and the Rewrite Method workbook that really break that down. But today, I want to talk about some key strategies to make sure that your kids are actually feeling the love when it comes to writing. Now, it's not so much what we do as much as how we do it. Now, simple things like, you assign a task to kids, right, that they need to be tested on. Maybe it's argumentative writing or something like that. Key is encouraging creativity. So, in the rewrite method, that stands for R, which is root causes and recognizing talents. E is encouraging creativity. W is the writing process. R is real world purposes. I is intentional practice. T is for traits for writing. And E is encouraging creativity. So, one of the main things that happens, especially as kids get older, is writing tasks like an argumentative writing. Teachers may think it's important to give everybody the same argumentative writing task. Now, you know, and I know that people have different interests, but for some reason, we think that kids all should write about the same thing. And of course, what's a better or worse, like what's the best way to get kids out of writing, right? The opposite of what we want is giving them a topic that they don't care about. So if you give them a blanket topic, they're someone's going to love it, and then you're going to have most of the kids who hate it. So, of course, the standard for English or writing is for them to learn how to write an argumentative essay. Now, does it all have to be about the same topic, which a lot of times the teacher is interested in, right? And teachers and students don't always have aligned interests. So, it's a good way not to engage your kids. Do the opposite of what you want to do, which is to make them love writing. And instead of making them love writing, you're making them hate it because they're going to have to spend a long time working on a task, a topic that they don't like. And so, just a little bitty change. Everyone does an argumentative project or writing piece, but on a topic that you want to talk about. It could be something that makes them mad, something that is very simple, like simple meaning that it's not like earth shattering. It's not going to be a law that needs to be changed or anything like that, but it's just something that irritates them or irks them. So, something that I really don't like are automatic toilets. And I've talked about this before. Not a big earth shattering thing. Some people do want to talk about more specifically, controversial topics that are going to, maybe have laws involved with them. And that's fine. Some kids want to be like, here's my favorite performer of all time that I think, right? And they want to argue you down about it. And that is okay. That's their interest. Um, that standard is going to be not just covered, but learned because those kids like about whatever they have like. And really weird. A couple years ago, I had like some middle schoolers write about the Beatles. I couldn't believe that they thought they were the best performers or the best band, but there it goes. That's what they grew up on or were introduced to it somehow. I even had one of my middle schoolers write about MF Doom, like how would and not even a student that you would think. It was like a Caucasian student girl. She said that Spotify or something like that had added to her playlist, and she was just really intrigued by the music, and he was one of her, favorite. So can you believe that? But you would never know what kids are interested in until you allow them that choice to say what they're interested in. And I can't in my mind, I would have never made that up. Like, you guys are going to write about the Beatles, you're going to write about MF Doom. I'm never going to come up with what their specific topic is. All you have to do is ask them and that'll be interesting to them. And that'll be something that they are going to pursue. And a lot of times you have to tell them, that's a little bit too many sources. Once you get them hooked, once you get them into something that they like and that they want to write about and they want to talk about, I mean, there's no limit, right? Especially like when you think like you've seen your kids love things, like you've seen them love to play video games or love to play soccer or love to do basketball or whatever, and you really can't like make them stop. They will maybe be up in the middle of the night involved in that game, or even if it's just like playing with the sock and throwing it into the hoop, like they're into something, you're not going to make them stop. So getting back to testing, right? If they love to write, if they love to read, and you've done things specifically to help them love it, and I call it hooking into that. And some people feel like, oh, you're hooking them. No, when I say hook, I'm saying like you're attracting them to it. So I don't know if people are getting mixed up with my semantics or whatever, but you're doing things to make them love it and to make them enjoy it. So I just focused a little bit on encouraging creativity. In that case, is choice. Choice allows them to be creative, to come up with a topic that they like and that is interesting to them. And it could range from very serious to very silly to, a whole gamut. And that gives them some agency in what they're doing. And it's free. Choice is free. Um, Another topic, another way to incorporate some of the principles of the rewrite method. And the rewrite method it includes principles and practices that are going to help kids to love writing, because a lot of times, and I've been around a lot of schools and I've worked in elementary, middle, and high school, that we are systematically, uh, squeezing the juice out of writing. I just crack myself up sometimes when I say things. Anyway, I mean that we're really, sucking the love, the joy, the creativity out of writing. When you talk to some high school kids, you'll definitely get some of them that will tell you this. I have a writing workshop that I've been leading for the past 6 years or so. And I have a very limited one that I'm offering coming up this summer. But that that first thing that I gave them, a survey about what makes them like writing, what don't they like about reading, writing, or literacy. And they did say what I could sense as I serviced. At one point, I worked as an English language arts advisor and served 39 schools and did some consulting for them, um, you know, in that capacity. And as I went, pre K through 12, looking at these different schools, I could see that they really hated writing. Even my experience when I first meet my students, a lot of them hate writing, but I really purposefully, you know, engage in these different practices of the rewrite method to help the kids to get out of writing hate and into writing love. And a lot of us don't even know we're doing it, and I do want to tell you, I'm a very serious person. So I did these things that I'm asking you not to do, and not to make the same mistakes, or to like reverse course, like stop doing it, or really avoid it if you are thinking of it, because it's really a disservice to kids. Definitely, because of the misinterpretation of the Common Core state standards, definitely, um, especially at the high school level, they have just taken creativity, no poems, very little narratives out of the English classroom. And when that happens, like, where else would they get that from? The science teacher is teaching narratives, the science teacher is teaching poems, like, so some kids definitely don't have experience in the high school level with any creativity when it comes to writing, because everyone has to do the exact same essay. There is only essays, and they're only one form of essays. They're basically 5 paragraph essays. And the other thing that I want to say about that is part of the rewrite method. Um, the second R in the rewrite method is really thinking about real world purposes for writing. A lot of the writing is just done for an audience of one, and that's the teacher. So when the writing is done for an audience of one, it is it's just such a disconnect, right? Like, what am I writing this for? And that one teacher will get very sick of reading that same thing, that same essay from kids, the same one, because everyone was given the same topic. The other thing about the rewrite method, I'm going to go back to the R, the beginning R, the root causes, and recognizing talents. So some people don't even look into the root causes, but I can point to some of those things. And one of the big things, I'll just talk about one of the big things of a root cause for hating writing is the type of feedback you get. Like, people just negatively just saying negative stuff about writing. And if you're, you did some college classes or something like that, you know that when you turn in a writing piece, it is a finished piece when you're in college. You're supposed to be. I mean, I guess if you're just a terrible student, maybe that's your first draft. But most people know that they've worked on that writing piece. And, what happens with our students is we are in the behind the scenes with them. We see their writing from the beginning, and we see the in its roughest phase. And what happens is some teachers look at that rough draft, and maybe they didn't even feel like writing that day, right? Maybe that topic doesn't appeal to them, and they barely wrote anything. And the teacher diagnoses them right away. Okay, they can't write. They don't know what to do. They have no idea what writing is. We're going to start from the top, or the bottom, whatever way you want to say it. And we are going to give them, depending on the age, we're going to start at the sentence level. Or, even high school, we're going to just do a strong paragraph with these kids because they can't write at all. But the problem is that we haven't even thought about the writing process. This is literally the kids' first draft. And most adults, you don't see their first draft. You see their finished product, and maybe it's not perfect, but you don't look at it and think, this is terrible. They have no idea what they're doing. But this is what we do to kids all the time. Our job should then be looking at what they have done well and then talking about how to build on what they do. Okay. So the second letter E in the rewrite method is effective feedback, because most of us don't give effective feedback. Most of us are saying the writing is crap and it's just a rough draft. And the effective feedback comes with rebuilding trust and rebuilding confidence. And one way to do that is using that 4-to-1 ratio, 4 positive things about the writing to 1 area of improvement. Now, in my book, I go into how you could find good things to say, even if you think the writing is crap. And I'll link some resources below. But it's really important that you are giving them compliments and talking about what's promising. So many kids are afraid to write because we have told them that they can't write and that their writing is incorrect and that this sentence doesn't make sense and that's not legible and everything. So even if you can't read the writing, have them read it and listen for the positivity in their writing. Now, if they haven't written that much, here's the other thing. You could listen to the things they say, because most kids will say things funny in a funny way, or they'll use certain words that are interesting, or they'll have an interesting perspective on something, and you could have them write that down. And that is a way that you could help build them up, because if they say these funny things, they've thought about it, they said it. The same thing. When you think about something, you can write it down. Writing, thinking, and speaking are recursive processes. They work together. So letting kids know that, reminding them of that is like a key way to get them out of the writing hate. Really talking about how you could build them up by looking at positives, talking about those positives, and then maybe one area where they can improve. Now, I'm saying one area, and this is how you do that. And I'm going to tell you right after these messages. The Rewrite Method and the Rewrite Method Workbook are your go-to resource for helping kids to learn to fall in love with writing. It has the tips, tools, resources, strategies, and skill building activities to help kids fall out of writing hate and into loving to write. Get your book set today. Okay, we're back. Okay, so now, how do we get them into some effective feedback, right? So, some ways that they can improve. We're looking for one high leverage thing. High leverage means that they did not make this mistake one time, that you're looking for a repeated mistake, a mistake that they make over and over and over again. Why is that key? Because it's normal, it's developmentally appropriate for most of our kids, if they are leveling up their writing, to make mistakes as they're moving into the next level of writing, and to have 30 plus mistakes in a multiple paragraph response. It's so normal, right? But the variety of mistakes, they can't process 30 different types of mistakes. So, a good point is that they're not always having 30 different types of mistakes. They may make one particular mistake 5 times. May make a particular mistake, even more than that, maybe. So, you're looking for that mistake that they're making over and over again, because they could learn that and they could process it. Now, if it's just because they spelled something wrong once or they used a verb tense or something incorrectly once, and then you're going to talk about the mistake that they made once and ten different mistakes that they made, that's too much to process. Processing 10 different types of mistakes and figuring out how to do it right the next time doesn't work. But what does work is finding a mistake that they repeat, a type of mistake that they make about 5 times or or whatever, and then taking that mistake and pointing it out one time, explaining to them how to fix it. And then you could do another time with them. And then the third time, they can actually point it out themselves. If it's there 5 times, and they could point it out the third, the fourth, and the fifth time and actually correct it. And they also are getting to know something about themselves as a writer. And that is something that we do not talk about very often, is getting kids to know themselves as a writer. What mistakes do they make over and over again? When we point out 30 mistakes and make that paper bleed by putting all kind of red marks, all kind of ink marks, all kind of mistakes, they don't know. The message is they're horrible at writing. The message isn't that they need to correct these things. They're just, I have no idea what to do and I'm not going to get better at this. It's kind of the message that's being is the message that's being driven home to them. But when we give them a mistake that they've made over and over again and help them to correct that, they can independently find that in their paper because they made it over and over again. And it is something that they can transfer to another writing assignment. For me, a mistake that I make often in my first drafts is that I repeat the same word over and over and over again in my first drafts. And I learned this about myself, like with writing partners and, workshopping my writing. And now I know when I have a rough draft, I need to look for that because that's something that I do. And again, it makes me more independent as a writer and better as a writer and get to know those things about myself. So, your writing and feedback, when it's effective, will help them to grow as a writer and it'll help them to be more independent as a writer because they'll know that this is a mistake that they tend to make that they need to look into correcting in their future writing. Okay. I'm laughing at myself because I don't know why. Anyway, but I really encourage you to take a look at the rewrite method and the rewrite method workbook to shift the paradigm in the way that you're teaching writing. Because when you're teaching writing in a way where everyone does the same thing in the same way, and you are under the impression that kids can't write and they don't know what to write, then they believe that as well. And you have seen kids not do any writing, the teachers that know, or parents who have done this to their children in their homeschooling or something like that, they will not write. They don't trust themselves to write. They don't trust themselves to write, and they'll wait for you. And they'll wait for you to give them the first sentence or the sentence frame, and they'll wait for you to give them the next one because they know they're going to get it wrong and they don't trust themselves to make mistakes. And you have taught them that. You've taught them that. And I am saying this because I have taught my students this before inadvertently. Not that I meant to, I meant the best for them. I wanted them to do well. But part of them doing well is letting them make mistakes, letting them have those crappy, I said it, crappy first drafts, and then you helping them to say what they did well, and then telling them, let me see this one thing I see that you did over and over again. Let's help you correct that. And the other part that I want to say about feedback and helping to improve the paper is revision. I'm saying revision or revising. What happens as an adult, as a proficient writer, you can edit and you could revise at the same time. Kids cannot until they get to a certain level. Now, revision means that you are improving the quality of your writing. You are leveling up your writing. It's not just first grade level. It is sophisticated words. It is high level, complicated sentences, right? Not just simple sentences, but complex compound sentences. So it's all of that extra, right? And that is something that you're not always able to do when you're focusing on editing and revision at the same time. Because most people, teachers, kids, everybody, they go right for the incorrect thing, which is that spelled incorrectly. There's no capital letter. Where's the period? And they don't talk about the revision first, which is let's use some more sophisticated vocabulary. Let's use a higher level sentence, right? And instead of doing that, they're really focused in on the corrections. And that's why kids don't trust themselves to write because they're like, I'm going to use a simple sentence because I know how to spell that simple sentence. But if I use a word like exacerbated, exasperate, yeah, I can't even get my words together, right? It's So, exhausted, exasperated, all these different words that you could use, right? They're not going to use because they're going to get it wrong, right? And so they won't use it. And so they have very simple sentences, very simple writing, but it's not high level. A elementary kid could do it, and they're not moving on past that. But when we tell them, okay, you're using high level words, you're using compound sentences, complex sentences, and it's okay, you're going to make mistakes, but you're going to try it and we're going to help you get through it because we're leveling up your quality of writing. And it's okay, you're going to make mistakes as you're learning how to do this. Then they will trust themselves to do that and they will challenge themselves to do a little bit more every time, and you're going to have grade level proficient writers, right? Not perfect writers, but they'll gain grade level proficiency because they are trying more challenging things and they will enjoy trying those things. You're going to give them some wordplay. You're going to give them some challenges that they haven't seen before. You're going to give them ability to make creative work. You're going to give them choices. Here's all these different things we've tried out. And which one do you want to make a final draft of? Do you want to revise? And that will give them the strength they need to sustain a test, any test that's put before them, because they're going to believe in themselves. And most of us um, know that it's very important to believe in yourself and also to believe in the power of your ability to get up even when you make mistakes and to look at mistakes as a pathway to growth instead of a pathway to like I'm not good at this, a pathway to putting yourself down. So I am so glad that you joined us today at the Falling for Learning podcast. Make sure that you do something today to give your child a competitive advantage. Thanks again for supporting the Falling for Learning podcast. New episodes go live every Saturday at 5 p.m. You can watch us on youtube.com at Falling for Learning or listen on all major podcast platforms such as Apple, Google, Audible, Spotify, and much more. For more resources, visit fallinginlovewithlearning.com. We really appreciate you. Have a wonderful week.